The stars looked peaceful through the observation window of the exploration vessel Horizon's Grace. Admiral Park stood alone on the bridge, his wrinkled hands clasped behind his back. At 72 years old, he had seen many stars. He had traveled to the edges of known space and back. But tonight, something felt wrong. Was not a man who ignored his feelings. 50 years of military service had taught him to trust his instincts. Those instincts had saved his life more times than he could count. They had saved the lives of soldiers under his command. They had helped him survive 3 wars and bury 2 sons who had died fighting for Earth. "Admiral," said Lieutenant from her station. She was young, barely 30, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "Sensors are picking up something strange. Multiple contacts approaching from the outer rim." Walked to her station and looked at the screen. Small dots were appearing one by one, surrounding the Horizon's Grace like wolves circling a wounded deer. "How many?" he asked. 40 ships, sir, maybe more." His voice stayed calm but could see the fear in her eyes. "They're not responding to our hails." 40 ships. The Horizon's Grace was an exploration vessel, not a warship. It carried 37 crew members, basic defensive weapons, and enough supplies for a 6-month mission. Against 40 warships, they would last perhaps 3 minutes. "Can we identify them?" asked. "Yes, sir," swallowed hard. "Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet, design with support vessels from the end." The Galactic Council had heard stories about them his entire life. They were a coalition of 12 alien species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They watched humanity's expansion with growing concern. In just 200 years, humans had colonized over 400 worlds. They had built a military that could challenge any single council species, and they showed no signs of slowing down. The council called humanity dangerous. They called them aggressive. They called them a threat to galactic peace. Called them afraid. "Sir, they're hailing us now," said. "Put them through." The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. It was a tall creature with compound eyes that reflected light like broken mirrors. Its mandibles clicked as it spoke, the words translated by the ship's computer into flat, emotionless English. "Human vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your ship." Stepped forward. "I am Admiral Park of the United Earth Navy. This is neutral space. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. Under what authority do you stop us?" The mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Under the authority of the Galactic Council. Your species has grown too bold, human. It is time you learned your place." The communication ended. Stood very still for a long moment. Around him, his crew watched with wide eyes. They were scientists, engineers, explorers, not soldiers. They had not signed up for war. Admiral's voice was barely a whisper. "What do we do?" Thought about fighting. He thought about ordering his crew to battle stations, about using every weapon they had, about dying with honor. It would be a good death, a warrior's death. But then he looked at his crew. He saw who had a husband waiting for her on Earth. He saw Chief Engineer, who talked about his daughters every chance he got. He saw Communications Officer, who was barely 25 and had never even seen combat. A warrior's death was not worth their lives. "Stand down," said. "All hands do not resist. That is an order." The crew obeyed, even though could see the shame on their faces. They felt like cowards. They felt like they were betraying everything humanity stood for. They did not understand. Walked to his command chair and sat down. He pressed a hidden button underneath the armrest, activating a secure, encrypted channel that not even the Council's technology could detect. He had installed it himself, years ago, just in case. "This is Admiral Park," he said quietly. "Broadcasting to Earth Command on Emergency Frequency 7, coordinates to follow. Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet has captured the Horizon's Grace. 40+ vessels. Command, "We are being boarded, crew is cooperating." He paused, then added 3 final words. "They took us." The message was sent. Whether anyone received it did not know, but he had done what he could. The boarding party arrived within minutes. Soldiers, tall and armored with weapons that hummed with deadly energy. They pushed the human crew to their knees. They bound their hands. They searched the ship. An officer approached, looking down at him with obvious disgust. "You are the commander." "I am." "You are old." The officer sounded surprised. "Among our people the old are given rest. They do not command ships." "Among my people," replied calmly, "the old have the most experience. We do not waste it." The officer made a sound that might have been confusion or contempt. "Take him separately. The council will want to see this one." Soldiers grabbed his arms and pulled him to his feet. As they dragged him away, he looked back at his crew one last time. "Stay strong," he told them. "Help will come." He did not know if he was lying, but he knew that his crew needed hope, and sometimes hope was the only weapon a soldier had. The ship that carried was cold and dark. The aliens did not need light the way humans did. They saw in spectrums beyond human eyes. To them was nearly blind, stumbling through shadows like a creature from primitive times. They did not give him food. They did not give him water. They did not speak to him. For 3 days sat in a small cell alone with his thoughts. He thought about his sons, dead now for many years. He thought about his wife, who had passed away 5 years ago. He thought about the cadets he had trained, the officers he had mentored, the soldiers he had led into battle. He thought about humanity. On the 4th day, the cell door opened. A guard stood in the doorway. "The High Assembly awaits you," it said. "You will answer for the crimes of your species." Rose slowly, his old bones aching from days of sitting on a cold floor. He straightened his torn uniform as best he could. He ran his fingers through his gray hair. Then he walked forward, ready to face whatever came next. He was not afraid. He had lived too long and seen too much to fear death. But more importantly, he knew something the Council did not. Humanity never abandoned its own. The High Assembly Chamber was the largest room Park had ever seen. It stretched half a kilometer in every direction, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Seats rose in great circles around a central platform, filled with thousands of alien representatives from every council species. Had studied these species during his long career. He knew the tall with compound eyes and clicking mandibles. He knew the serpentine creatures that slithered instead of walked. He knew the beings made of living crystal that chimed when they moved. He knew the massive 4-armed giants with skin like stone. He knew them all. And he knew that every single one of them was looking at him with contempt. Guards pushed forward, chains heavy on his wrists and ankles. The metal bit into his skin with every step. He was tired. He was hungry. His body ached in ways that only old age could explain. But he walked with his head held high. The central platform was a circle of polished stone, lit by harsh white lights from above. Was forced to stand in the exact center, surrounded on all sides by his captors. He felt like an animal in a cage, put on display for the amusement of its owners. High Arbiter rose from his seat at the front of the chamber. He was the tallest had ever seen, standing over 3 meters high. His exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian. His compound eyes reflected its image 1,000 times. "So," said, his voice booming through the chamber, "this is the terror of the galaxy. This is the species that has conquered 400 worlds in 2 centuries. This is humanity." He paused, looking up and down with obvious disappointment. "I expected more." Laughter erupted throughout the chamber. Clicking, hissing, chiming, rumbling, a symphony of alien amusement at human expense. Stood still and let them laugh. He had been laughed at before. It meant nothing. Descended from his platform and approached slowly, each step deliberate and threatening. When he reached the human, he leaned down until his face was just centimeters away. "You are old," said. "Your skin wrinkles like rotting fruit. Your hair loses its color. Your body weakens with every passing year. And yet your people sent you to command a starship." "Age brings wisdom," replied quietly, "something your species seems to lack." The laughter stopped. His mandibles clicked in anger. "You dare insult the council?" "I state a fact. You captured a peaceful exploration vessel in neutral space. You imprisoned its crew without cause. You brought an old man in chains before your assembly to mock him. These are not the actions of the wise." For a moment, the chamber was completely silent. No one had ever spoken to the High Arbiter this way. No prisoner had ever shown such defiance. Then laughed again, and the rest of the chamber joined him. "Brave words from a dying species," he said. "Your bravery will not save you. Your crew is being held in our detention facility. They will remain there until you give us what we want." "And what do you want?" "Information. Began to circle like a predator circling prey. The locations of your military bases, the positions of your fleets, the secrets of your weapons technology. Give us these things and your crew will live. Refuse and they will suffer." "Did not hesitate, no." "Stop circling. No, you understand what you are saying. You condemn your own people to pain and death." "I understand perfectly, and my answer is still no." A delegate slithered forward from the seats, its serpentine body flowing like water. Its scales were a deep purple, and its eyes glowed with an inner light. "Perhaps the old human does not understand his situation," they said. Its voice was a soft hiss that sent chills down spine. "We have studied your kind. We know your weaknesses. You require sleep every day. You fall ill from tiny organisms. Your bones break under pressures that our children endure. You are the weakest species in the galaxy. You should be grateful that we have allowed you to exist this long. You have studied us," acknowledged, "but you have not understood us." "What is there to understand? You are soft. You are fragile. You are mortal. In 100 years, every human alive today will be dead. What can such creatures teach the Eternal Council?" Looked at with eyes that had seen more death than this creature could imagine, eyes that had watched sons die, eyes that had ordered soldiers into battles they would not survive, eyes that held no fear. "We can teach you," he said slowly, "that mortality is not weakness. We know that our time is limited, that every moment matters, that we cannot wait for tomorrow because tomorrow may never come. This is why we move so fast. This is why we build so quickly. This is why we fight so hard." He turned to address the entire chamber, raising his voice so that all could hear. "You call us weak because we grow old. But do you know what an old human is? An old human is a survivor, someone who has faced death again and again and refused to fall, someone who has accumulated decades of knowledge and experience, someone who has nothing left to fear because they have already seen the worst the universe has to offer." The chamber was silent again, even seemed uncertain how to respond. Continued, "You see an old man in chains and you laugh. You think you have captured something worthless, but you have made a terrible mistake." "And what mistake is that?" demanded. Smiled, it was a thin smile, tired and worn, but it reached his eyes. "You have captured a teacher, and my students are coming." His mandibles clicked in dismissal. "Your students? What can students do against the might of the Galactic Council? We have 10,000 ships. We have armies beyond counting. We have ruled this galaxy for. Your students are nothing." "Perhaps," said, "or perhaps you are about to learn a new lesson." He said nothing more, stared at him for a long moment, then made a gesture to the guards. "Take him to the interrogation chambers. He will talk eventually. They all do." As the guards dragged him away, kept his eyes fixed on the great viewport behind the assembly seats. Through it, he could see the stars shining in the endless black of space. Somewhere out there his message had been received. Somewhere out there humans were gathering, ships were fueling. Soldiers were arming, plans were being made. The council thought this was the end of the story. They thought they had won. They thought humanity would bow before their might. They were wrong. This was not the end. This was the beginning. And when humanity finally arrived, the council would learn a lesson that they would never forget. But for now would endure. He would resist. He would refuse, not because he was brave, but because it was his duty, because his crew was counting on him, because his students needed time. The guards threw him into a dark cell. The door slammed shut behind him. In the darkness, Park closed his eyes and waited. Help was coming. 3 days passed in the interrogation chambers beneath the high assembly building. 3 days of pain, 3 days of questions, 3 days of refusing to break. The council used machines that sent fire through every nerve in his body. They used chemicals that made him see nightmares while he was awake. They used voices that whispered terrible things, trying to destroy his mind from within. Park endured it all. He thought of his wife, who had died with a smile on her face after 50 years of marriage. He thought of his sons, and who had died in battle defending human colonies from pirate raiders. He thought of the thousands of cadets he had trained, the officers he had mentored, the soldiers who called him teacher. Each memory was a shield against the pain. Each face was a reason to keep fighting. On the 4th day, they brought him back to the assembly. Could barely walk, his legs shook with every step. Blood stained his torn uniform. His face was bruised, his lips cracked, his eyes sunken with exhaustion. But he was still standing. The guards pushed him to the center of the chamber, where waited with obvious frustration. 3 days of interrogation, and the human had not given them a single piece of useful information. "You disappoint me," said. "I thought your species valued survival. I thought you would choose the easy path." Looked up at the High Arbiter with eyes that still burned with defiance. "My species values many things. Survival is only one of them." "Then perhaps we have been too gentle with you." Gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed the detention facility where his crew was being held. "Your people are here. 37 humans frightened and alone. We have not harmed them yet, but that can change." His jaw tightened. He had expected this. He had feared this, but he did not waver. "You will not touch them." Laughed, "And who will stop us? You. Look at yourself, human. You can barely stand. You have no weapons, no allies, no hope. You are nothing." "I am not the one you should fear." The assembly murmured with confusion, leaned closer, his compound eyes glittering. "Then who should we fear?" Did not answer. Instead, he turned his head toward the great viewport behind the assembly seats, the viewport that showed the stars, the viewport that showed space beyond Throne Prime. "Look," he said simply. Turned, more out of curiosity than concern. Every member of the assembly turned as well. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the stars began to change. Points of light appeared where there had been only darkness. 1 at first, then 10, then 100. They grew brighter and brighter, like new suns being born. The space around Throne Prime blazed with sudden fire. Ships, human ships, hundreds of them, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Battle cruisers the size of small cities, carriers that held thousands of fighters, destroyers bristling with weapons, support vessels carrying soldiers and supplies. The entire Third Fleet of the United Earth Navy had arrived, led by the massive dreadnought Reckoning. The assembly exploded into chaos. Aliens screamed, clicked, hissed, and rumbled in terror and confusion. Guards rushed to defensive positions. Sirens wailed throughout the building. Only remained calm. He stared at the fleet with something like disbelief. "This is impossible," he said. "How did they find us? How did they get here so quickly?" "I told you," said. "My students are very good." On the bridge of the Reckoning, Admiral stood before the main with her hands clasped behind her back. At 45 years old, she was one of the youngest admirals in Earth Navy history. She had earned that rank through skill, intelligence, and an absolute refusal to leave anyone behind. Beside her stood Fleet Commander Han, a broad-shouldered man with a face like carved stone. Behind them, Operations Chief Bay monitored tactical displays with cold efficiency. "Open a channel," ordered. "All frequencies, make sure everyone hears this." Pressed a button. "Channel open, Admiral." His voice echoed through the high assembly chamber, cutting through the chaos like a blade. "This is Admiral of the United Earth Navy. You are holding our people prisoner. You will release them immediately. You have 1 hour to comply." The assembly fell silent. All eyes turned to. The High Arbiter recovered his composure and stepped forward. "You threaten the Galactic Council. With a few hundred ships, we have 10,000 vessels at our command. You cannot possibly—" "I wasn't finished." His voice remained perfectly calm. "Admiral Park, are you there?" Smiled, blood on his lips. "I'm here." "Would you like to explain to our hosts what they're facing?" "It would be my pleasure." Turned to face the assembly. Despite his wounds, despite his exhaustion, his voice was strong. "You studied humanity," he said. "You learned that we are weak, that we grow old, that we die, but you missed the important part." He paused, looking at each alien species in turn. "We do not sleep because we are weak. We sleep so our minds can dream of new ways to defeat our enemies. We grow old because we pass our knowledge to our children who become more dangerous than we ever were. We die, yes, but before we die we teach." He pointed to the viewport, where the human fleet hung in perfect formation. "Admiral was my student. I trained her myself 20 years ago. Every captain in that fleet learned from someone I taught. Every officer knows tactics that I helped develop. Every soldier follows strategies that I helped create." His smile widened. "You captured an old man thinking he was harmless. You captured the one person who taught them all. You captured the teacher." His mandibles clicked nervously. For the first time he seemed uncertain. "This changes nothing," he insisted. "Even with your fleet you cannot defeat our combined forces. The Council will call for reinforcements. You will be destroyed." "Maybe," acknowledged, "but we don't need to defeat you. We just need to hurt you badly enough that you remember, and we always remember." He took a step forward, chains dragging on the stone floor. His voice dropped to a whisper, but somehow it carried through the entire chamber. "You took me from my ship. You took my crew. You laughed at us. You called us weak. You thought you could break us." He leaned toward, close enough to see his own reflection in those compound eyes. "You want war, we will give you war." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Outside, the human fleet began to move. Ships glided into attack formations. Weapons powered up. Fighter craft launched from carrier bays. Admiral watched the tactical display and spoke quietly to her crew. "All ships prepare for combat operations. Primary objective, rescue Admiral Park and the Horizon's Grace crew. Secondary objective, teach these people a lesson they will never forget." Nodded grimly, "And the Council forces?" His eyes were cold as ice. "If they get in our way, they die. Simple as that." The clock had started. 1 hour until humanity's patience ran out. And somewhere deep inside, Park felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Pride. His students had come. The Council did not release the prisoners. High Arbiter believed that humanity was bluffing. He believed that they would never risk open war against the combined might of 12 spacefaring species. He believed that their threats were empty, their fleet was weak, and their resolve would crumble when faced with true power. He was wrong about everything. When the 1-hour deadline passed, Admiral gave a single order: begin. The Reckoning fired first. Its main cannon, a massive weapon that ran the entire length of the ship, released a beam of concentrated energy that struck the largest Council defense station. The station, which had stood for 3,000 years, disappeared in a flash of white light. Across the fleet, human ships opened fire. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through darkness. Fighters swarmed like angry bees around Council vessels. The Council's home fleet tried to respond. They had numbers on their side, nearly 1,000 ships defending Throne Prime, but numbers meant nothing against fury. Captain O commanded the battlecruiser Indomitable. She was 52 years old, a veteran of a dozen conflicts, and one of Admiral Park's first students. When a carrier tried to block her path, she simply drove straight through its defensive line, her ship absorbing damage that would have destroyed lesser vessels. "All forward batteries fire at will," she ordered. "Clear a path to that detention facility." Her weapons officer, Lieutenant, grinned fiercely. "With pleasure, Captain." The Indomitable carved a path of destruction through the Council fleet. 2 cruisers fell. 3 frigates exploded. A command ship broke apart under sustained fire. Meanwhile, Captain Lee led the ground assault. His shook violently as it descended through Throne Prime's atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire exploding all around them. Was 48 years old. He had served under Admiral Park during the Mars Uprising, and he had never forgotten the lessons the old man taught him. Stay calm, stay focused, never leave your people behind. 30 seconds to landing, shouted his second-in-command, Lieutenant. Checked his rifle for the 10th time. Around him, 40 Marines sat in silence, their faces hidden behind combat helmets. They were volunteers, every single one of them. When the rescue mission was announced, more than 10,000 soldiers had stepped forward, had chosen the best. "Remember the mission," he said. "Find the crew, get them out, kill anyone who gets in your way." They hit the ground hard. The doors opened, they moved. The detention facility was a massive building made of dark stone, surrounded by walls and guard towers. Council soldiers, mostly, and defended every entrance. His team did not use the entrances. They used explosives to blast through the walls. They used smoke grenades to blind the defenders. They moved through the chaos like ghosts, appearing and disappearing, striking and vanishing. Private No, the youngest member of the team at just 23, was the first to reach the prison cells. He found the crew of the Horizon's Grace huddled together, bruised and frightened but alive. "United Earth Navy," he announced, "we're here to take you home." Lieutenant, the young officer who had first detected the Council ships, looked up with tears in her eyes. "The Admiral, is he?" "We're working on it," said. "Right now you need to move." In orbit, the battle raged on. More Council ships arrived as reinforcements, but they were not enough. Admiral had not brought just the 3rd Fleet. 6 hours into the battle, additional human fleets began arriving, the 5th, the 7th, the 12th. 4,000 warships carrying 2 million soldiers. Earth had sent a message. The message was simple. This is what happens when you take one of ours. Commander Minu piloted the destroyer Soul's Fury through the heart of the Council formation. His ship was small compared to the dreadnoughts and carriers, but what it lacked in size, it made up for in speed and firepower. A carrier loomed ahead, launching wave after wave of fighters. Minu studied the tactical display and made a decision. Navigation, set a collision course with that carrier. His crew hesitated. Executive Officer Sora spoke first. "Commander, that's a suicide run." "I know," Minu's voice was calm. "I'm ordering all hands to the escape pods now." Sora started to protest, but she saw the look in his eyes. She had served with Minu for 6 years. She knew when he had made up his mind. "All hands abandon ship," she announced. "Commander's orders." The crew evacuated. Minu remained at the helm, guiding his ship toward the carrier's hangar bay. At the last moment, he transmitted a message on all frequencies. "This is Commander Minu of the Soul's Fury. For the Admiral, for Earth, make them remember. The Soul's fury struck the carrier at full speed. Its reactor overloaded on impact. The resulting explosion was visible from the surface of Throne Prime. The carrier and everything inside it ceased to exist. In the high assembly building, Park watched the battle through the viewport, stood nearby, his confidence crumbling with every passing moment. "Call them off," demanded. "Tell them to stop. We will negotiate." "It's too late for negotiations," replied. "You had your chance, you wasted it. We will kill the prisoners, all of them. They're already being rescued," pointed to the tactical display showing a human lifting off from the detention facility. "My students are very efficient." Made a sound of pure frustration. His mandibles clicked wildly. "This is madness. You cannot win. Even if you destroy our home fleet, more ships will come. The entire council will unite against you. Perhaps turn to face him. But by then, your capital will be in ruins. Your fleet will be destroyed. Your pride will be shattered. And every species in the galaxy will know that humanity is not to be taken lightly." A new voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral Park, this is Captain Lee. We have your crew. All 37 accounted for. Extraction shuttle is en route to your location." Smiled. "Understood, Captain. I'll be ready." He looked at one last time. The High Arbiter, who had seemed so powerful just days ago, now looked small and frightened. "Let me give you some advice," said. "Free advice from an old teacher. When this is over, learn from it. Remember what happened here. Remember that you started this war, not us. Remember that we asked for nothing but peace and you answered with chains." He began walking toward the exit, his chains dragging behind him. Guards stepped forward to stop him, but a single look from made them hesitate. "And remember one more thing," he added. "There are billions of humans across 400 worlds. Every single one of them will hear about today. Every single one of them will know that you took an old man in chains and tried to break him. And every single one of them will remember that we came for him anyway." Outside, a human shuttle descended toward the assembly building. Its weapons were aimed at any council soldier foolish enough to interfere. Park walked out of the building as a free man. Behind him, the council's world burned. The war lasted 8 months. It was not a war of conquest. Humanity did not want to rule the galaxy. They did not want to destroy entire species or burn worlds to ash. They wanted something simpler, something more powerful. They wanted respect. Every council species that had participated in Admiral Park's capture faced consequences. They lost their fleet yards, the massive orbital stations where they built their warships. They lost their weapons research facilities, the hidden laboratories where they developed new ways to kill. They lost their mining colonies, the economic heart of their civilization. Nothing was destroyed that could not be rebuilt, but the message was clear. Humanity would not be ignored. Admiral led the campaign with cold efficiency. She did not enjoy the destruction. She did not celebrate the victories. She simply did what needed to be done, and she did it better than anyone else could. When the High Command tried to ambush her fleet at the Battle of, she saw through their trap and turned it against them. When they launched a desperate attack on human supply lines, she predicted their movements and crushed them completely. When they offered to negotiate, she accepted their surrender with grace and fairness. Fleet Commander Han became famous for his defense of the colony world of Nu. With only 30 ships, he held off a council fleet of over 200 vessels for 3 weeks, buying time for reinforcements to arrive. Operations Chief Bay developed new tactics that maximized human advantages while exploiting council weaknesses. Her strategies became required reading at every military academy. Captain Lee led ground operations on a dozen worlds, rescuing prisoners and civilians, accepting surrenders, showing mercy where mercy was earned. And Admiral Park, recovered from his injuries, advised the War Council. He was too old for frontline combat, but his wisdom guided every major decision. When young officers wanted to push harder, to take more territory, to punish the council more severely, reminded them of the goal. "We are not conquerors," he said. "We are teachers, and the lesson is almost learned." On the anniversary of capture, the Galactic Council was dissolved. It happened in the same assembly chamber where he had been mocked 1 year before. The same great viewport showed the same stars, but everything else had changed. Representatives from all 12 council species sat in silence as High Arbiter stood before them. He had aged visibly in the past year. His once gleaming exoskeleton was dull and cracked. His compound eyes no longer held arrogance. "The council recognizes its mistakes," announced. "We acted out of fear. We saw humanity's growth and felt threatened. We responded with aggression when we should have responded with understanding." He turned to face the human delegation, led by Admiral and Admiral Park. "We ask for peace. We ask for forgiveness. We ask for a chance to begin again." Admiral looked at Admiral Park. The old man nodded slightly. "Peace is acceptable," said. "Forgiveness will come with time, and beginning again means building something new. Not a council where the powerful rule the weak, but a union where all species stand as equals." The Galactic Union was born that day. Humanity held a permanent seat on the governing body, but they did not seek to dominate. Instead, they pushed for reforms, equal representation for all species, protection for the weak, laws that prevented any single group from becoming too powerful. It was what they had wanted all along. A galaxy where humanity could grow and trade and explore without fear. A galaxy where cooperation replaced competition. A galaxy where the old hatred could finally fade away. Park retired to Earth after the treaty was signed. He chose a small house in the mountains outside, far from the cities and the noise. The view reminded him of the house where he had grown up, where his grandmother had told him stories about ancient warriors and heroes. Visitors came often. Admiral brought reports from the Union Council and asked for his advice. Captain brought bottles of rice wine and stories from the frontier. Cadets from the academy came to learn from the man who had become a legend. On his 75th birthday, a journalist named Shin came to interview him. She was young and eager, representing a news network that reached billions of viewers across human space. "Admiral," she asked, sitting across from him on the wooden porch, "do you regret what happened? The war, the deaths, the destruction?" Looked out at the mountains. The sunset painted them gold and red, colors that reminded him of fire and blood. "I regret that it was necessary," he said finally. "Every death weighs on me. Every destroyed ship, every burned city, every grieving family. I carry them all. But I do not regret the outcome. The galaxy learned something important that day, something it had forgotten over thousands of years of council rule." "What did it learn?" Turned to look at her. His eyes were old and tired, but they still held that spark of defiance that had frightened the council. "That you should never mistake kindness for weakness. Humanity wanted peace. We offered friendship. We reached out with open hands, and the council answered with chains and mockery." He paused, sipping his tea. "So we taught them the other lesson humanity knows. Which is that we protect our own, no matter the cost, no matter how old we get. When you hurt one of us, you face all of us. When you take one of us prisoner, we come to bring them home. When you mock one of us, you mock us all." Wrote it down carefully. This would be the quote everyone remembered, the words that would define a generation. Across the galaxy, on 100 worlds that had once belonged to the Council, monuments rose to commemorate the war. But the most famous monument stood on Throne Prime itself, in the ruins of the old assembly building. It was a simple stone pillar carved with words in every known language. The words said, "You wanted war, we gave you war. Now let us have peace." Admiral Park died at age 89, surrounded by family and students. His final words were a whisper, heard only by Admiral, who sat beside his bed. "Did we do right?" he asked. Took his hand. "We did what we had to do. We protected our people. We built something better. You taught us well, Admiral." He smiled, closed his eyes, and was gone. The funeral was attended by representatives from every species in the Galactic Union, stood beside humans, wept alongside, bowed their massive heads in respect. They came not to gloat or observe, but to honor the old man who had shown them what humanity truly was. Not monsters, not conquerors. Teachers. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had taught it, and at the center of it all was one old man in chains who had refused to break. Park was buried in the mountains outside next to his wife and sons. His gravestone was simple, bearing only his name, his dates, and a single phrase. He taught them, and the galaxy would never forget.